Are Dragon Ball characters HAX resistant? Let's talk about it. The answer is undoubtedly yes. Dragon Ball characters do have HAX resistance as long as they scale above the person that is using the HAX. Now, I was scrolling along Reddit and I seen this one person that made a list 7 years ago talking about how there are certain HAX even within the Dragon Ball world that even if you're stronger, you are still susceptible to being hurt or harmed by. However, I looked at this list and there's a lot of things wrong with it. Before we do that though, I want to talk about what a HAX is by definition. The term HAX is really just derived from the English word hack or hacks, right? Which literally just translates to unfair or overpowered ability that is used in the common world of fiction. There are no special criteria to be a HAX with the exception of like your ability literally being overpowered, like broken to a point where it needs to be maintained by a writer. Now with that established, let's get into the list. The first HAX that is being mentioned on this list is the Devil-Mite beam, shown by Devilman in Dragon Ball. This is random because it's never alluded that the only reason why Goku was able to resist or counter this attack was because of him solely having a pure heart. And we know this is true because Devilman's beam is literally made of concentrated ki, and when your ki is high enough, you can literally invalidate and nullify ki attacks. Not only that, but ki attack being made up of a specialized component being overridden by somebody stronger is not a foreign factor in Dragon Ball. This spirit bomb is literally a prime example of this. We know that anybody with a non-pure heart literally is susceptible to being hurt or damaged by the spirit bomb if they are evil in nature. And here's the issue with that. If you're strong enough, even if you're evil in nature, you could still resist the spirit bomb and its power. So yeah, once again, HAX being overwhelmed by both power and a specialized component is not crazy. The next technique being mentioned is body change. However, this once again is just another fallacious call out and I need to mention it again. The only instance about body change being used on a stronger person than Ginyu himself is in the case of Goku, where Goku is visibly and literally discombobulated and shocked at what is going on before his eyes. He has no idea what is going on and he was literally caught off guard by it. And we know that if you are caught off guard in Dragon Ball, especially in the case of Goku, your durability can drop to massive degree. The next is the mafuba, and the fact that I have to explain this once again just means that the people creating this list did not actually read or watch Dragon Ball, but I'm going to explain it again. The mafuba is literally a key technique where it involves you taking all of the energy inside of your body and using it to control an object as a means of sealing it into a rice cooker or another object. Not only is it verbatim stated by Roshi that this old King Piccolo is far above any of the Z fighters, but it's also confirmed by the fact that he's literally able to shit on Goku while holding back the same Goku that is equal or above Roshi. So again, using this technique required all of Roshi's energy. It did not work because of who he was using it on, and he missed, and it killed him. Not only was Piccolo holding back in that entire back and forth between Roshi and the rest of the Z fighters, including Goku, he also shows some resistance to the technique by literally making Roshi miss. Merge Zamasu is literally weaker than Super Saiyan Blue Goku, as confirmed by the fact that after he's done fusing, he literally gets a strength boost. Now here's where I prove that again, the mafuba varies from person to person. In the case of Roshi using all of his energy, the reason why was because of the gap between him and Piccolo being so vast. When it comes down to Goku and Zamasu, that gap is way smaller, and this is openly shown by Goku not being completely drained of his energy upon using the mafuba on Zamasu. When he uses it, he drops down to a level where he cannot go back into blue, but he can still use Super Saiyan God, which again proves that the technique varies from person to person depending on how strong the person using it is in comparison to the person it's being used on. Just for more proof, look at how Goku is in comparison to Roshi when they're both using the mafuba technique. One literally is on the verge of death, struggling at every single moment of the technique's usage because of the giant gap in strength between him and the person he's using it on. Whereas with Goku, that strain is not shown. So once again, we know for a fact that the power gaps is what determines whether or not the struggle is there. And if you are way too strong for this person, you may end up making them lose so much control to where they cannot precisely aim the attack. Once again, this is performed on a holding back Piccolo, not a full power one, so this would not be trying to showcase anything related to what would happen if full power Piccolo was hit with the mafuba technique. Even Piccolo Jr. could resist the technique by literally doing what? Firing a more powerful mafuba technique. So yes, if you are strong enough, you can resist that HAX. Like, the next one is Guldo's time stop, which Oh my god. Yes, we know that Gohan and Krillin were above Guldo in power. However, we do not know the quantification for how high that level was above Guldo. And yes, we know that Guldo's time stop was being resisted by their strength factor because Guldo is physically straining himself as a means to keep them stopped. And he literally says that he cannot keep this up any longer. So we can now simply deduce that based on this, Guldo cannot stop time for lengthy periods on people who are stronger than him. There is a HAX resistance in this play. And no, his time stop is not key related at all. The next is Psychokinesis, which is done by Frieza, Cooler. Shit, it's done by a lot of people actually. Now this person cites General Blue as like the example here, but here's the issue with this. Goku literally resists it. Like literally, he looks into General Blue's eyes, pokes him in them, and then proceeds to rock him in his shit. Literally. So yes, he resists it. Like what the fuck? Okay, now this is a part of the video where I have to explain a little break in theory. So when it comes down to hacks that bypass general durability, and what I mean by that is hacks that changes like the DNA configuration of you, right? Quite literally should be accounted for as something that cannot be resisted, because as a character, as a human being, or even just as like a humanoid creature, these people do not have the ability to change their DNA. They cannot do that, right? However, we know for a fact that that is what these transfiguration beams do to these characters. Now, when it comes to people like Majin Buu has the ability to turn people into food, right? However, if you are not stronger than Buu, you will then be rendered useless because all of your power will be taken from you and you will literally be a husk of what you used to be. Now again, like I said, we know that his beam cannot be resisted because again, this has nothing to do with power, but instead a change in DNA. Now, even though you are still a piece of food, if you are stronger than Majin Buu, you now have the ability to resist the factors of you losing your mental capacity and your power. So while yes, DNA cannot be rewritten by these characters, they can still resist that HAX. So for all the people in the back who don't understand where I'm currently at right now, if you are not paying attention, I'll say it again simply. Dragon Ball characters, if they scale above the person using the HAX, right, can outscale the HAX as long as the HAX does not have anything to do with bypassing or overriding conventional durability. So things like conceptual manipulation, reality manipulation, things of this nature can be resisted if the person in question has an ability that is tied to their own conventional durability or does not bypass conventional durability. For example, if you can only reality warp what you scale to, if Goku scales above you, you cannot warp him, thus he is resisting your HAX. Same with things like time manipulation. If you are not stronger than Goku, you cannot freeze him in time. So the precedent is pretty much set on the opponent to justify whether or not the HAX abilities in question bypass conventional durability or just go against the grain in terms of Goku resisting it. And if they can't do so, then Goku can resist that HAX, point blank. With that being said, I hope I explained everything to your liking. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit it with a like and subscribe. Yeah, be good people. I'm out. Peace.